Hi everyone, welcome to Target Fix channel. Today I am going to explain AWS Cloud. Um, Mainly, I think everyone have some idea towards a cloud for what purpose that we are using. Today, most of the companies they are using cloud services for their projects, and AWS is one of the booming service. I mean, you can learn any of the cloud service, AWS, Azure, IBM, or Google Cloud. Once you learn perfectly one of the cloud service, then other cloud services are somewhat similar, so it is easy to learn the other cloud services also. Let's start. Let's see. Before that, let's see. Before cloud, how that we are connecting. Okay, we have listened LAN network, MAN network, and WAN network, right? I mean, let's see that in a particular place or in particular building, if you want to communicate with all the systems or servers or instances, whatever the name it is, to communicate, that the technique that we are using is LAN network. Okay, if there are two buildings, in a same region, has to communicate between both the servers in between two buildings, then we are using the MAN network, metropolitan network. And if you want to communicate, there are two branches, one is in Mumbai and one another one is in Delhi. As to communicate between two branches, the technique that we are using is a WAN network. I mean, the same thing that we are implementing in the AWS. Okay, let's see. This is the full architecture of the AWS, how that we are performing the operations. Let's see, AWS is a cloud. As infrastructure level, what we are creating is we are creating VPC. Under VPC, VPC is nothing but that we are uh, I mean purchasing some of the IP addresses, which means 65,000, 30,000, 40,000, and that we are keeping in a particular place. Let's say that you are okay. I give a small example. You are opening a company, right? In the AWS there are a lot of members that are interacting. There is as to escape from the disturbances from others, that we are creating our own network. The terminology is VPC, which means whatever that we are creating, we are the owners for that. In the VPC, that we are creating these subnets. Okay, in the subnets that we are creating whatever the databases, whatever the app services, whatever the functions, whatever the virtual missions that we want, that we are creating here. In the AWS terminology, virtual missions are called as EC2 missions. Okay, and there are public subnets as well as the private subnets. Let's say you have a web application. Okay, the users want to interact with the web application, and the whatever the data it is generated, the data was stored in the DB, right? The users don't want to interact with the database, right? So the database that we are keeping in the private subnets, and whatever the applications users can access, that we keep in the public subnets. Okay, and another one is the internet gateway, which means how the traffic will go towards a VPC. We are defining in the internet gateway, we are attaching internet gateway towards a VPC. And the route table, internally the subnets as well as the virtual machines as well as the database, how they are communicating, those rules and security groups that we will mention in the route table. Okay, let's see. And another one thing is the IP address range. Okay, CIDR we will call it as. Okay, let's say 10.0.0.0 by 24, which gives 256 IP address. It is the 32-bit IP address, right? Slash 24, which means the n mask, which means 32 minus 24, which means 6 7 8 8 2 power 8, which is the 256 IP address, which means for this VPC that we are assigning 256 IP addresses, which means we can create 256 services from the AWS. but by default 4 to 5 IP addresses are assigned taken by the AWS for communicating purpose or some other purposes. Okay, and let's see, in the subnet that we are defined 10.0.00 by 25, which means 32 minus 25, which is 2 power 7, which is 128 IP addresses that we are assigning for this subnet. Okay, which means in the particular subnet that we can create 128 of instances. In the, let's go towards subnet 2, and let's see the IP address 10.0.0.128 by 25, which means the previous subnet have 128 IP addresses from 0 to 127, and the second one will start from 128 towards 255, I think. Yeah, 255 only. This is the IP address that we are defining, and we will defining it, right? Then we have the IPv4 and IPv6. These are techniques. I mean, at present IPv4 and IPv6 both are running. Why? Because today the technology was enlarging and we are using a lot of internet of things. So as to give a particular IP address, I mean, as to connect in the internet for each and every device, there is a need of IP address. So IPv4 addresses are going down, so they have created IPv6. So there is nothing between that, and we have till that, right? CIDR range setup. This is a diagram. Okay, 10.0.0.0. Okay, yeah, let's see here. In a particular account, we want to interact with the two VPCs. The technique that we are using is the VPC peering. Okay, we can communicate using the VPC peering between two accounts or between two VPCs or between two locations. We use the same technique. These are all the diagrams. Yeah, I mean, whenever that we are creating the VPC peering, there are some stages. Let's see, these are the stage, 4 stages: initiating request, pending acceptance, provisioning, and active. Okay, once a VPC in one account will request for a instance which was present in another VPC in another account. Here the request was went, and in the destination account they need to accept it. Then only we will get access. I mean, the virtual machine, whenever it is accessing the DB in the another VPC, when they get accepted, then only it will get response. Okay, and let's say that if we created the VPC peering between VPC1 and VPC2 and between VPC1 and VPC3, we can't communicate between the VPC2 and VPC3. Yeah, if we want the communication between any two of the VPCs, we need to create the VPC peering. It is must and should, and there are some limitations for creating the VPCs, which means in between the VPCs, whenever that we are creating the VPC peering, the IP addresses will not match. Okay, and you cannot create VPC connection between two VPCs at the same time. And also we can create a single VPC peering between two VPCs. Peering settings: both VPCs owner should accept the request. A route table should update after the VPC peering done, which means okay, after that we have created the VPC peering, we need to update the route tables. I mean, what IP addresses you need to accept, what IP addresses you need to take a request, like that of things. And these are the peering rules. Okay, let's see this. No overlap IP ranges between the two VPCs. We have discussed that. I mean, same, if the two VPCs have the same IP range, then it is not possible to communicate. And the second one is no transitive peering. We have said, right, to make a communication between two VPCs, there must and should between VPC peering. The second one, and the third one is we can't use the internet same internet gateway for both of them. Instead of that, we use the VPC peering. This is the infrastructure level of AWS. I mean, okay, everyone can discuss towards creating of EC2 mission, but before that you have a brief idea where we need to create instance. Okay, whenever that you are creating the EC2 instance, it will ask the VPC as well as the subnet. I mean, in which VPC you are going to create the EC2 instance, under which subnet you are going to create. I mean, if you don't know the concept of VPC and subnet, it is somewhat disturbance for you. Yeah, thank you so much, guys, and like my video and subscribe to my channel for latest updates. Bye bye.